Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to Cooking with Curiosity, Sharing During Distance Learning. This is the second in a series of webinars on our new Cooking with Curiosity curriculum. My name is Nick Lee. I'm a Senior Program Manager with the Edible Schoolyard. I'm in my 9th year with the organization after starting as a AmeriCorps service member back in 2012. Tonight I'm joined by my colleagues Raquel Vigil, who's our curriculum specialist, and the co-designer along with me of our edible education at home. Can you say a quick hello, Raquel?
Yeah, hello everyone. It's so wonderful to be with all of you today.
And we're also lucky to have Russell Sturton, who is our community manager, and he's helping out running the tech side of things, making sure that everything runs smoothly tonight.
Hey everybody, welcome and thank you for being here.
Awesome. So I want to start just by doing a quick acknowledgement of where we are. We're about 2 weeks out from an election. It's a intense moment. We're in the midst of a resurging pandemic and watching as more restrictions are brought in and more people continue to get sick. There is a lot going on in our world right now. And I just have to name that and recognize that. And then I want to set an intention that we'll take this time, we'll take this hour to really focus on the work ahead of us, which is continuing to improve how we teach in a distance learning setting, recognizing that for many of us, that's going to be the reality for a while. So I want to thank you for coming out tonight to spend some time with me and my colleagues as we talk about distance learning and how to teach cooking with curiosity in distance learning, and really to lean into the importance of sharing during distance learning. But I want to start actually with a little breathing exercise just to ground ourselves. It helps me when I'm facilitating, and I hope it will be helpful for you as well. So we're going to do a couple of deep breaths, doing a 1, 2, 3 count on the in breath, a hold of 3 count, and a out of a 3 count. So just follow along with me, breathing in, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, out, 2, 3. Again, in, hold, and out. In, hold, and out. Thank you for joining me in that. So we're actually going to start by doing a quick who's in the room. We're going to use the chat feature to do a little bit of sharing tonight. And so if you can find the chat and open it up and write into the chat your name, where you're coming from, and what you teach, and then something that you see sharing contributing to a student. Why is sharing something that we should have our students do? So again, that's your name, where you're from, what you're teaching, and why you appreciate sharing as an instructional strategy. It's great to see we've got folks from all over the country and somebody joining us from Japan. Welcome. So our agenda today is we're going to start by talking about Cooking with Curiosity, this new curriculum that we've just released, and how it features sharing as a key instructional strategy. After that, we'll do a sharing activity where we'll all get to practice sharing and get more familiar with some technology that is useful for sharing. And we'll do that by highlighting some nature in our home or in our workplace. After that, we'll have a discussion using Padlet on approaches for sharing during distance learning. So this is where we'll share some of our ideas of how you can share during distance learning, and you'll also be able to contribute your ideas to that discussion as well. Finally, we'll do a sample lesson looking at our peer check-in. That's part of the Cooking with Curiosity curriculum. And then we'll do a little exit survey and a Q&A. We should be wrapping up this session right at 5 p.m. And then have about 10 to 15 minutes afterwards for question and answer, if you're interested in sticking around for that. Our essential questions for the session are: how does sharing support student learning? How can students share their work? Who can students share their work with? How can students share work during distance learning? And finally, how is sharing designed into Cooking with Curiosity? So those are the questions that we'll seek to answer and enrich your understanding of today. Let me switch my screen share here to our website. So I know some of you were on our last webinar a couple weeks ago where we talked about reflection as another key instructional strategy of Cooking with Curiosity. But for those of you who weren't, I want to walk you really quickly through our website and how to access the Cooking with Curiosity curriculum, how to see these resources that we're going to be talking about today. So this is our homepage, and you can click this banner right up top. Click here to find edible education resources for the home classroom. And that will take you to this Edible Ed at Home page. From here, you see Cooking with Curiosity. Right now, we have Units 1 and 2 published online. Units 3 and 4 will be coming on November 18th, so keep an eye out for those. If you click on one of these unit overviews, you'll get taken to a page that looks like this, that has the progression of the lessons in Unit 1. Each of these you can click through to, and that will have a full resource detail page, including the summary and some of the learning goals. And then this is the button that you really want. This is the button that will take you to the full lesson plan, the PDF lesson plan. I want to make a note that all of the lesson plans are downloadable. You can use them. You can download this and then send it directly to your students as is. You're welcome to use these. And that every lesson plan that has a worksheet or questions and answers is fillable so that students can return those PDFs right back to you after completing their work in those lessons. We can navigate over to Unit 2. And I just also want to note that for each unit, there is also a scope and sequence document that will talk you through that unit, that will outline that unit specifically, and what is being featured in that, what the learning objectives for that unit are. So again, this is a really rich, comprehensive suite of resources for teaching cooking to upper elementary and middle school students that can also be scaled to early elementary and high school and even post-secondary. What I want to talk about next is these different core instructional strategies that we have. And last week we talked about reflection as a really important strategy for students right now, for helping them build their self-efficacy, their understanding of their ability to accomplish tasks, and also their ability to affirm themselves as they're working in a much more independent fashion or even isolated fashion than they're used to. And today we're really going to be talking all about sharing. And sharing is written deeply and closely into Cooking with Curiosity. It's written into many of the lessons, have a sharing component so that students can connect and build community around the work that they're doing. So we believe that sharing supports students in so many ways. And if you have more ways that you're not hearing me say, I encourage you to just pop it in the chat. Go ahead and say what you think sharing does for students. But for me, sharing supports students by helping them learn from one another. They're able to see another student's approach to a similar problem or to a similar recipe and see other ways of doing the same thing. And that's a tremendously valuable way that they can learn from one another. More than anything right now, sharing helps students connect to one another. I think it's one of the greatest challenges of distance learning is that so many students feel isolated. They feel disconnected from their peers, from their classroom. And sharing is a way to have them engage with one another, to comment on one another's work. And it can challenge that feeling of isolation. It can build a feeling of community. They can feel a part of something when the whole class is contributing their work in something that everybody will be looking at, and they want to have theirs be a part of that as well. I want to note that sharing can also be challenging and can be tricky. If students don't feel emotionally safe or connected or trust in one another, it can be really fraught. It's vulnerable to share your work. And so it's important that before starting to share work, especially in a digital platform, you want to make sure that students are building connections and that they have some of these reflective practices in place so that they know how to engage with one another's work. Another note is that in this time of distance learning, where we're all seeing more into one another's home spaces and home environments, sharing can unearth inequities in their home lives. And as you're crafting your assignments, as you're engaging with your students and asking them to share in different ways, think about how that might be at play. You'll actually notice I'm in a very anonymous environment today, and that's because I'm at my in-laws' place and didn't really want to show off their home. So, just think about the assignments that you're giving and the ways that you're asking students to share, and think about how that might ask them to share more than they're comfortable with, and make sure to provide options out if you are asking them something that is asking them to share a lot. Two more points that I want to make on this, and then we'll have an opportunity for you to really engage and practice some sharing. Sharing helps students see their own work in a different light. And this is something that I think is really important. And last week in our reflection, or not last week, a couple weeks back when we were talking about reflection in this curriculum, we talked a lot about how reflection helps students see their work and move past their own initial judgment of it. And oftentimes students are really tough critics of their own work. And using different reflection strategies can help students see the value in their own work. But hearing it from a peer is even more powerful often. So sharing work helps students see what they have learned, what they have accomplished, and build more excitement about their own work. I'm laughing a little bit because I was having a conversation just this morning with our development officer, Aaron, who I think is on this call. And we were going back and forth about something that he had made, and he was saying, oh, the crust didn't turn out right. And I was saying, no, it's beautiful. And I was going, wait, use your reflection wheel from Unit 1 and the Cooking with Curiosity, man. What are the standards that you're comparing that to? Why are you saying it's not beautiful? And so this was a form of him sharing his work, very informally. And he's saying, no, man, I think that's gorgeous. Why are you so down on that? And our students should do that too. And we should provide them opportunities to bring each other up and help them see the value of what they've done. And then the final thing that I want to say about sharing is that it can help us as teachers right now. And that distance teaching is a significant challenge, and it's a significant change. And one of the things that I've noticed as I've prepared for these kind of teacher workshops is that it's much harder to read the room and know how something is going. I'm not getting live feedback in the same way that I am when I'm teaching in person. And that makes it much harder to know how you're doing as the teacher. And that can make it hard to keep up your motivation and to stay engaged as a teacher. Has anybody else felt that? Just raise your hand, throw your hand up if you're like, yeah, I've definitely felt that. Okay, so I'm seeing a couple hands up. And so getting student work and getting reflections from students can be a really valuable assessment for yourself and an affirmation for yourself. When you are having students share their work and you're seeing them proud of their work, you're seeing them excited by what they've done and what they've learned, that can be a really important affirmation for you and the work that you're doing as a teacher. And that's not trivial in this moment. So I just want to encourage you to have your students share with you so that you can know that they are learning. You can see that the ways that they are succeeding and the ways that they're taking pride in that, because that's important for yourself as a teacher right now.
Yeah, can I just add one other point? Is that I also think the sharing, part of this curriculum, we really emphasize sharing with family, right? Because I think that it brings, already families are playing such a critical role in learning in the distance moment. And I think approaching the ways that we think about families in the curriculum and the way that we think about sharing with families sort of adds this other type of affirming element to it. And so I think it definitely is sort of that student to teacher, teacher to student, family to student, teacher to family kind of sharing environments that we want to support.
Thank you, Raquel, for adding that. So those are all the reasons why we think sharing is super important. And again, Cooking with Curiosity is written with a number of sharing strategies built in. Every lesson nearly every lesson has a share component. After students finish a create your own recipe in which they make choices in deciding which ingredients to use in a recipe, we often have a share format. And as Raquel said, that share format might be share with your family, it might be share with your peers, it might be share on a whole class platform. And we'll look at a sample lesson a little bit later on, but right now I want to lean into actually having everyone here do a little bit of sharing, and also to practice some of the technology that we find really useful for sharing. Um, and that's part of what this webinar is about, is actually practicing using the technology and getting more familiar with it so that you can use it in your own practice. Um, Also, for these tools that we're about to use, we do have guides together on our website. Those are already published on our website, and I will include the links to them in the follow-up email to this. But what we're going to do right now is a little activity called Finding Nature in Your Home or in your workplace, wherever you are. And you're going to take a couple of minutes and find something that reminds or that connects you to nature in your home or just outside of your home. So maybe that's you running outside and picking up a leaf off the ground, or taking a photo of, you know, the most beautiful tomato that's on your counter in the kitchen, or taking a picture of a gorgeous landscape painting that's on the wall in your space. Um, Really take a second, think of how many things you can find in your environment around you that are connected to nature, even as you're in your home or in your workplace. And once you have found that thing, you're going to actually take a photo of it and add it to a group platform called Padlet, where everyone else will be able to see that thing that you were so struck with, that you're so curious about, that connects you to nature in your home. So I'm going to share a QR code on my screen in just a second. And a QR code is one of those blocks of white and black that you'll be able to point your cell phone at using the camera, and it should open a window or open a little pop-up that you can click on that will take you to Padlet, which is a website. And on that Padlet, you'll be able to add a photo. So I'm going to share that QR code. And if this is new and unfamiliar, don't worry, we are here to help with this, and we will help you get this set up. So here's the QR code. And again, if you have a mobile phone, a smartphone, take it out, open the camera app, just point it at that, and you should see a little pop-up box. Click on that, and then you'll get a view to the Padlet. And once you're in the Padlet, there's going to be a little pink circle with a plus sign at the very bottom. You can tap that and then click on the little camera icon. And then whatever photo you take will be shared to our class's Padlet right now, and everyone else will be able to see that as well. Again, if you're having any issues with this, go ahead and pop that in the chat and we'll be able to support you. But if you are good to go, go ahead and go find something that connects you to nature in your home or just outside your home and take a photo of it. And we'll aim to be back here in about 4 minutes. So go ahead. Somebody's asking, will we get a link? I'm using Zoom on my phone. Yes, I will pass you a link. Sue, I see you saying you don't have a cell phone. If you'd like, you can just write about something that you're seeing that connects you to nature and just write that onto the Padlet. Okay, looks like we've got a lot of people adding things. Seeing some really beautiful photos of plants and flowers. Okay, and we'll just take another final 30 seconds here to add your photo to the Padlet. Or again, if that's not working for you, just go ahead and add to the Padlet on your computer or phone, just typing in a little description of what it is you're seeing that connects you to nature in your home. So it looks like most everybody's back with us. So from here, we've all had a chance, most everyone has had a chance to share the Padlet now. And what we're going to do next is actually go to a breakout room. So we'll be able to have a little discussion. This is the equivalent of going into small groups in the classroom to discuss what it was that you found and what meaning it has to you or why you picked that item. So we'll go ahead and launch our breakout rooms, and you should get an invitation to go to a breakout where you'll have a chance to discuss what you posted with a couple of folks. If you end up with some extra time at the end, just go ahead and make some observations on what others posted as well. So let's go ahead and launch those breakouts. Okay, welcome back everybody from your breakouts. We'll give just a few more seconds for folks to return from their other rooms. I hope you were able to have a nice discussion and talk about what you saw. I'm really curious as to who has the therapy donkeys, and it looks like they have just a gorgeous meadow there and bright sunny skies. That looks amazing. So I think we have just about everybody back in the main room now. And we're going to go right into our approaches to sharing during distance learning. So we're going to share some of our favorite approaches to having students share their work during distance learning. And we're going to do this using a new Padlet, a different Padlet, as a notepad. And I'm going to invite you to actually add to that notepad as I'm talking with other ideas, or to riff off some of the ideas that I'm putting on that notepad by commenting on them. Raquel's going to be our note taker today for this. So thank you to Raquel for adding these ideas as I put them out there. And then the one other thing that I just want to mention is that if that QR code thing didn't work for you, don't worry. That's a new technology, something new that you're trying out. And that's part of teaching and adapting to using new technology, is just trying. And it might not always work out the first time, but we're happy to troubleshoot. We're happy to support. And again, we do have a support resource document on using QR codes that we'll share at the end of this workshop. So we should have that new Padlet in the chat. So you can click over to that and you can have that up just as I'm talking in the background, and you can watch as Raquel takes notes on these ideas as I'm talking about them, and then you can add your own thoughts to that Padlet too. So the first column there is forms of media, different ways that students can create and share. And I want to highlight that in this moment of distance learning, videos and photo essays are actually two great ways that students can share their work quickly that will be really rich visual mediums for them to share. Writing is obviously a great way for them to share, as are voice memos and audio recordings. Each of these are very different approaches, and some students might be more comfortable with some than others. So it can be nice to provide an option in how students can engage. But the ways that this might look like is if you have students who have just completed the create your own yogurt sauce recipe and you want them to offer a little share out with their classmates, they could do a quick photo essay, taking photos along the way as they create that. Or they could do a brief audio recording about their process and the choices that they made. Drawing is another way that some students really, really love to engage, and is a natural way for them to share their thought process and what they've done. So that's another way that you can have students share their work. Again, as those are appearing on that Padlet, if you have examples, if you have thoughts about those different mediums, go ahead and add to that. You should be able to add a comment below to tell a story about how you've used that medium in your classroom. The next thing I want to talk about is how sharing can happen with asynchronous learning or with synchronous learning. So right now we're doing this synchronous class. We're all in the same time together, which is how some districts are doing distance learning, while others are doing all asynchronous, where materials and videos are posted online and students engage with them at a later time. Sharing can look pretty different between synchronous and asynchronous learning. And so we just wanted to note that there are different strategies for having students share their work depending on how your district, your school is approaching distance learning. For asynchronous sharing, we really like slideshows and videos as ways to have students share their work. And having students do peer reviews or evaluations of their work can be a nice way to have them engage and provide feedback and commentary on one another's work. Having students submit their work to you and to view for their peers on a Google Classroom is another way of sharing. And then finally, Flipgrid and Padlet are great ways to have students share their work in a visual medium, just like you all shared your work in that Exploring Nature from Home. And then, as Raquel mentioned earlier, we really like to encourage students to share with their family. if they're not having synchronous classes, if they're not online with their peers at the same time, it can be really nice to encourage them to lean into the people that they are spending time with, which is most likely their family at home. And then finally, social media can actually be another platform for having students share their work. And this is one where you might want to check with your district or your school's policy on that, but it can be a really rich platform for students sharing their work. Again, add more ideas that I haven't listed there. Comment, like the ones that you like. Moving right into synchronous ways to share. We've actually done quite a few already in this session. So we used a chat at the very beginning of this session, just where you could all talk about where you're coming from and how you see sharing supporting student learning. We used breakout rooms, so you could have a small discussion. We used a Padlet for you to post a visual of something that you had found. And we're using slideshows in this for me to present and share this work to you. But that's also something that you can have students do. You can have them do slideshows or share a video that they've created during a synchronous class. And then finally, polling is another powerful tool for having students share their opinions. And that can be used in having them give you live feedback, instantaneous input on a question that you're asking. So right now, I actually want to take a couple of minutes and give you some time to really engage and add to this Padlet. You can see that there's two more columns here, which is examples of sharing during distance learning, and then questions or concerns or lessons learned about sharing. And that's a place for you to put any questions that you have, voice any concerns that you have, or if you've done some sharing with students and had something not work out and then learned how to make it work, add that to there as well. Okay, thank you everyone for all those awesome contributions on the Padlet. I really love some of the ideas on here and just want to highlight somebody's mentioning using nonverbal signals, using ASL for yes, no, and connections that helps students engage. I'm seeing somebody talk about using hand-raising features as a way to have them stay engaged. And I also love somebody's suggestion here to have students share a starting point rather than a finished product to kind of get over the nerves of sharing something and move past that, I guess, fear of judgment and perfection that we talked a lot about in the last training session here. So thank you for everyone for contributing to that Padlet and sharing all those wonderful ideas. The next thing I want to look at is a sample lesson from Cooking with Curriculum. That's one that we really love, and it's the peer check-in lesson. So I'm going to share my screen again here. This is lesson number 7 in Unit 2, and it has students talk with a peer to actually review their work and check on their goals. And what this lesson really supports students to do is engage in a process with a peer where they're addressing their negative self-talk. And that's something that is, again, really common in my experience with teaching students how to cook. And this is having students practice providing empathetic, supportive feedback to one another. And in doing so, they practice building that voice. And that is then a voice that they can actually use to support themselves. And so this is a lesson that I think is just really rich in having students help each other build their confidence in cooking. And that's really what this curriculum is about, is having them engage in reflective practices and become more confident in their skills as they're learning something that I think is portrayed in media as something that has to be perfect. Raquel, is there anything you would want to add to this lesson? I know this is one that you really appreciate and is close to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I really like it because it allows sort of that, I think it gives space for students to to in some kind of lower stakes way, just try out giving each other feedback, right? It's sort of just for a short amount of time, 10 minutes, they're just on the phone. I like that there's an element of saying call, or, I think depending on how you want to set that up, you could sort of say Google Meet, or you could do it synchronously and have students do this in breakout groups. But yeah, I really like that these are the kinds of questions, and we're bringing to the forefront to reconsider, thinking about the places that, you might sort of negative talk. And a lot of this actually was inspired by, a lot of the living with a young person, my little brother. This was sort of inspired by things that he sort of noticed in his classroom, where he was sort of telling me after school one day that there was a student that felt really just kept putting themselves down, and that he was trying really hard to sort of interrupt that kinds of ways, and sort of encouraging that his peer to sort of say, no, like, you did really great. And so it's sort of saying, in the context of cooking, I think we should make space for that actually being more formalized. And I said, I told him it was so great that he did that with his classmate. And so it could have inspired this idea of actually getting to create a lesson in which students are doing that more directly with each other, and trying it out. So I think that it's a really interesting one to sort of try and then kind of keep coming back to. You'll see in the curriculum these kinds of, this lesson is part of extension activities that we invite educators and teachers to sort of use and keep using throughout the curriculum, here and then other places as well. So, yeah.
Thank you. Awesome. So again, I would encourage everyone to just browse these lessons, see which ones you might be interested in using and teaching. And that is hard to believe, but it's already been 55 minutes. So we're going to do a little exit survey, which is actually another form of sharing. And so I'm going to ask you to share with me and provide a little bit of feedback on this session in this quick survey. It should take you just a minute or two. And surveying, you can also have it set up so that students can see one another's answers. And that, again, is a really great way to get students to share their work with one another and see each other's opinions, thoughts, and approaches. This one is set to private, so only I and the team here will see your responses. You don't have to worry about each other seeing your responses. But I'll put on music again for just about a minute or two as you complete that survey, and then we'll have a quick thank you, and then we'll do a Q&A for anybody who wants to stick around for a few minutes of Q&A, which I hope you will. Looks like we have about half of people having finished the survey already. Thank you to everyone who has submitted it. If you've got it still open, feel free to continue working on it, or come back to it after we wrap up. Either way. I just want to note that that Padlet will stay online, so you can refer back to it. I will include the link to that Padlet in the follow-up email to this webinar. And we also are going to be sending out a couple of other resources that are on our website, including the sharing toolkit, the QR code guide, and our guide to using Zoom for instruction. So again, those are all detailed resources that will support you in setting up these different tech tools and making them work for you. I want to give a quick plug for our newsletter. If you're not already subscribed, I encourage you to subscribe to our newsletter. It's bi-weekly, and it includes the latest new releases from Cooking with Curiosity, as well as other updates on the Edible Schoolyard. And I want to also mention that right now we have a really exciting campaign celebrating our 25th anniversary. The Edible Schoolyard was founded 25 years ago in October, and we're celebrating that 25th anniversary with a 25 for 25 campaign, where we're asking for donations of $25, and we're hoping to get 250 donations from new donors, with the majority of those being $25 donations. There's a great video celebrating our 25th anniversary with some words from Alice Waters, our founder, and Angie McKee Brown, our executive director, about the history and the future of this organization. So I'd encourage you to watch that. The link for that is in the chat. Thank you for coming out today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming on this learning journey with us. It's really great to see so many people here, so many dedicated cooking and gardening educators working to support students right now. So thank you for coming out.